We pull up YouTube as well. All right, AJ.
We
are in here. A little Sunday Night Live over here at
is
the
it
Heel
live
Report.
Or is it Memorex?
Presented by TarHeels247.com. Got to get that in there.
That's an OG thing. If there's anybody that knows, is it live or is it Memorex? If you know what that is, that means you're really freaking old, just like me.
You've managed to date yourself in the first 5 seconds of this podcast. That's fantastic stuff.
I know. I can't remember stuff on TV when I was like 4 for some reason. I don't remember anything important in life, but I remember crap like that.
See, that's about right. I'm going to give people 30 more seconds. We're going. We're not going to give people.
I was telling David's sis the other day. We were talking the other day about when I was in Indiana in 21 for the NCAA tournament when the whole thing was in Indiana because of COVID, and how I had to pull over to the side of the interstate to write the Walker Kessler is transferring story, literally on the side of the interstate on my way to the airport. And then I was sitting in the airport at my gate when David called me and told me that Roy was retiring, and this was like 9 days before it came out, and he had some connections where he was being discussed and stuff. And we couldn't report it because it was just like 1 or 2 connections. It wasn't enough to make it go out there. Plus, sometimes you just have to allow things to happen with the people involved, one upstage 100%. Or anything like that. But I remembered exactly where I was. He's like, how do you remember that? Well, David,
you're
that was
fantastic.
Only 5 years ago, dude.
You were fantastic.
But that was only 5 years ago. The Memorex commercial was like 45 years ago.
I've always said you have like a photographic memory almost when it comes to certain sports things. It always impresses me, honestly, because I just don't have that. I don't have that. Like I just don't have that.
I don't have it for stuff that's actually important in life. So
yeah. You I don't remember what I did 3 days ago, but I'll tell you who the head coach at UNLV was in 1986. Like, you know what I mean? It's just that's why you're so good at what you do. So
Jerry Tarkanian.
Yeah, I know you know that. That was a tap in. I give you an easy one right there.
We've been about a minute and a half. We should probably dive in now, right?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get rolling. Appreciate everybody that's in here. We're going to answer a lot of questions in this one. But I want to start with this, AJ, as per the title of our live stream. I don't want to just clickbait people in here and say, I got you guys, and we're not even going to talk about what the title is. Latest with Hubert Davis's future. You've been dropping a bunch of, I'll call it juicy intel on our Tar Heel 24/7 premium message boards. Come on over and sign up. Links in the description over the last couple days. And I think we're going to talk about that a little bit here. Obviously, you're not going to divulge everything that was put in there because we have, we have people that put their hard-earned money to be a part of our awesome community over there. So we don't want to divulge everything in there. But what is kind of the latest update you can give us about Hubert Davis in North Carolina and kind of what's going on with that? Because obviously it is not only the talk of the town right now in this area, but really the talk of the nation when it comes to sports right now. It is a very, very intriguing topic and something people are just wanting as much information as they can get about it. So what kind of info can you give us?
Can I give you? That's the key.
Because
a lot of stuff has to be vetted. The vetting process, when there's a lot of little tidbits of information, can be exhausting because you don't want to put stuff out. I'd rather put one sentence out there and know that it's 1,000% accurate than put a bunch and feel pretty good about it, but not know 100% that it's accurate, which is one of the reasons why in the VIP update that I did last night, which was people woke up to Sunday morning, I actually had a section in there about the rumors. I thought people would get some enjoyment and entertainment value out of the wild damn rumors I'd been hearing. And people are reaching out to me saying this and that, and I'm not going to bother going over it right now because that's the thing. The rumors are just crazy, and a lot of people will believe rumors because they want it to be true, or they just want something that's new and exciting and different, and no matter what it is. And it's pretty fascinating. So many people on Twitter, for example, I've got it well sourced, such and such is going to happen. And they may end up being right, but they're probably not that well sourced because there's only a handful of people who know what's going on, or I'd say a little bit more than a handful that can be sourced. And then there's certain people that are going to be able to have access to those sources. So you got to be careful, and vetting is extremely important. I've prided myself on that for 30 years. So where we are right now is that there's really nothing that has changed. Tonight's post is probably going to be the most uneventful one or it's going to be the shortest one, but we believe, as we have maintained all along, that there will be a change and it will happen sooner rather than later. The manner that it is worded by the university, as I have said from day one, I believe it would be noted as a retirement or stepping away. I think Hubert deserves that respect. He deserves to kind of go out sort of on his own, if you will. But that's what we've been reporting. A lot of other people have it out there as well. There's some really good members of the media that cover UNC that are putting some of that stuff out there 100%. That they expect. There's some national media who are on top of it as well, Pete Thamel and others. And all of us are pretty much on the same page that the full expectation is that there will be a change. It's a matter of how they word it. It's a matter of maybe when it gets announced. Well, Hubert's radio show for Monday night, which was supposed to be the last one of the year, has been canceled. So you can read the tea leaves as you will. I believe Monday might be a very eventful day around North Carolina basketball. Sad day, perhaps, and also an exciting day because the future is now. It's time for North Carolina to get back to being North Carolina again. So that's the expectation. That's kind of where we stand right now. And I can answer a lot of questions about some things people have about this. I don't want to get into the next coach because technically, at least publicly and technically, there is no vacancy right now. And it's not fair to discuss other coaches when there is not an actual vacancy. Mm-hmm. So we've heard names. Some of the names I see scrolling through here. I see some names that people are scrolling through here that I'm laughing at. It's probably will be, maybe I'll do another rumor mill tonight on the VIP.
Maybe you need to, yeah.
It'll come strictly from this right here. Cause let me put the specs on. Yeah. There's some names coming through here that kind of, nice try, guys.
Yeah, there's one in particular I keep seeing where I'm like, let's just not do that.
Come on, guys. Yeah, there's several.
Kind of like, come on, man. We need to go that way instead of keep going down this path.
Come on, AJ. You can have some fun. I am having some fun right now. I'm having some fun because I'm getting used to the idea of doing these live streams. I used to do radio for years.
Oh, no.
And I love the direct interaction with people, and we haven't done that. I go onto the YouTube comments. We started opening that about a year and a half ago. The stream now is pretty cool. We're not going to always do streams, but I do like the idea of us doing regular streams even through the off season, just to see what people are saying, and we get some ideas of things to talk about because people bring stuff up. They want to know things.
100%. And from a producer, very selfish perspective, I like it too, because as soon as we get off of here, my job's done. I don't have to spend an hour editing it and an hour getting it up and upload it. So yeah, from a very selfish point of view, as a guy who edits 99% of our videos, I'm like, man, let's keep these live streams going. And we can go longer too, because it's like we don't have to worry about it. We want to get this up really quickly, so let's go a little bit shorter and blah blah blah. So yeah, I've enjoyed these live streams a lot. But
I just got back in town because I stayed in Greenville, and I have to take my wife to run some errands after we're done with this because she's been sick for a while. She can't drive, so I got to do that too. So that makes it easier too.
You probably need to get to. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair after being gone for a while. So yeah, as he mentioned, we're not going to talk about other names right now. It's just not the appropriate time to do it. But we want to answer some questions. The main gist of this live stream was just to come in here and do some Q&A stuff. And address what AJ just addressed, which is obviously the title of the live stream in here as well. So if you guys got any questions, go ahead and get them in, and we'll wait for some of those to roll in. Just make sure, again, we're not going to answer any that have anything to do with future coaching candidates or whatever. Because as of right now,
I see a comment about Dylan Mingo. Just keep in mind, Dylan has not signed yet.
Yeah,
Maximo has signed. Dylan has not signed yet. Just so people know.
If you're
I'm not hinting at anything. I'm not hinting. I'm just letting people know that he has not signed yet.
Premium boards too. I know AJ's been all over the Maximo Adams injury and stuff. Has put some really, important information there about that too. So yeah, that's another reason to sign up. I'm not trying to sit here and just do selfish promos all the time. But
we have kind of. There's also one of the things I'm going to do. Excuse me, the pollen's really getting to me. I'm probably going to do this tonight or tomorrow. We've been gathering intel on roster stuff, and kind of like with don't want to talk about other coaches. David and I made a decision. It's kind of always been my policy since we started with the portal, that you don't talk about what kids might do until after the season is over. I'm not a big fan of doing that while the season is still going on. So we have waited, and we're kind of putting some stuff together. David was texting me some information about a few players today. So we're going to cobble some things together either tonight or tomorrow. And honestly, it's almost doesn't matter in some ways, because when like if a new regime comes in, everything's going to be reevaluated across the board.
100%.
So if it was the same regime, we would have a much better idea. We would have already run something this weekend.
Yeah, for sure.
So we don't want to put stuff out there that's obsolete as soon as we get it out there, or that could be misleading because the news changes. So it's only being fair to the kids, number one, and it's being fair to the people who consume our content. We don't want to confuse things any more than they can already be confusing at this when you're going through something like what is happening right now.
Yeah. One of the questions I see that popped up is, will Caleb come back? I know that's something that I think from some of his own doing with some of his cryptic Instagram comments is kind of like people have been like, wait, is there like a chance he'd come back or something like that? I've always maintained that you're a top 5 pick, arguably a top 3 pick, lottery pick. I personally cannot see a world where he does. Again, I'm not Caleb Wilson, so I'm not sitting here saying he is definitely going to go or saying he's definitely not going to go. But just to me, from a common sense perspective, I just can't imagine why a guy like him would say, I'm going to come back with all the stuff going on here when I've got a guaranteed lottery pick sitting right in front of me. So I don't know if there's anything you want to say on that, but that's just how I've always kind of looked at it. It doesn't make sense to me that he would come back in a lot of ways, unless he's just be that guy. You know what I mean?
Quick, different topic just for a second. I want to respond to Mikey-PS9VQ. He says, right or wrong, Hubert did all for the love of UNC. Everyone should be grateful for that. I am 1000% in agreement with you. I hope that's the way this ends up being treated and goes down. I think it should. There was a lot more very positive than otherwise. It's just that when North Carolina basketball, we're talking North Carolina basketball, one negative kind of supersedes 15 positives. It's like that with Alabama football, Ohio State football, Kansas basketball, Bill Self leaves, same kind of thing's going to happen there. So that's part of the territory of when you're in charge of something so massive. And with the fabled history that it has, and with the massive fan base that it has. And there's a benefit there because guess what? Fans own the programs now. Fans have to fund the programs. And that's been one of my concerns and criticisms of Hubert this year. He's been chippier after losses than previously. And he doesn't owe you or me or Noah or anybody he doesn't owe us anything after a game.
He owes the fans.
But he does owe the fans, and we're the liaisons. And that's one of the areas I think that he went wrong and really went wrong Thursday night. And that was all part of what went into how people have started viewing his tenure at UNC. A lot of people that woke up Thursday not even wondering if there would be a year 6, but went to bed Thursday night thinking that year 6 can't happen. Mm-hmm. So, but I agree with what Mikey said. I think that that's really important. I think that needs to be the narrative very, very quickly here. He's got a half century of Carolina in his blood, and I love that about him. I really do. And he's a really, really nice person. Great family man. There's so many wonderful qualities. Not everybody can win enough basketball games at North Carolina, and that's just the way it goes.
And I've said this before too, but I personally think the vitriol that surrounds Hubert from certain people I think it will fade very quickly. I personally do. I really don't think
Speed Shady, I agree with you. Speed Shady 10, I agree with you. I think I'm sitting in there in the press conference. I asked the first question about being tired, and it kind of went downhill from there. I agree that was the last straw. And that was the last straw as far as what I thought. As far as what I thought should happen too. I'm sorry. I realized at that point that a change had to be made. Just couldn't move forward anymore. He had done a lot, done as much as he could. Now just hand it off to somebody else. Take it into the end zone.
And it wasn't the first time we'd had press conferences like that this year after a loss. And again, I just thought there wasn't a lot of accountability maybe in a situation where I think a head coach has to sit there and take some accountability for how that second half played out. But I'm glad you answered that because that was not the first person that asked a very similar question to that. So I was going to bring that one up. I was going to look and see because there was another question somewhere else that is these chats moving so fast that it's hard to keep up with.
Yes.
But AJ, on the Caleb Wilson thing that was asked, do you have anything you want to say on that? I mean, people are just asking, is there really a chance he might come back? I guess there's always a chance anything could happen, but I mean, anything else you want to say about that?
Probably the odds are that every person here other than Magic Rat knows what Memorex is. So he just commented in there. I mean, I have no way of knowing. I've said before, and this was long before Thursday, Caleb Wilson is different, man.
Yeah.
He's just cut from a different cloth. If there is a kid that I have dealt with in a while who was an obvious top 5, top 4 pick as a freshman, who I could see coming back because there's more that matters to him than just the immediate NBA. Well, he's got to get to the second contract. He's going to have 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to make enough money for 5 if he's smart with it, 5 generations to live off of. What he cannot purchase with NBA money is being at center court for the opening tip in Cameron Indoor Stadium. He can't purchase that. Mm-hmm. What he can't purchase with no matter how much money he gets is an opportunity to run out on the court in an NCAA tournament and do something special and that is magically emotional. He'll never be able to purchase that. And if you talk to guys that play in the NBA for a long time, ask them what their favorite memories are, they go back to stuff like that. So if there's ever a guy that I've covered, certainly since Tyler Hansbrough, because he could have gone his freshman year and didn't, and he came back and wanted to win a title. I think Caleb is the kind of guy that would, but I don't want to mislead anybody. I have no idea. I have not talked to him about it. He's mentioned a few things. It's the standard line, the same stuff that Cooper Flagg was telling Duke reporters last year. The stuff I've heard before from guys. It's the same stuff. I think a lot of it depends on what the program looks like here in a month from now. So, but I wouldn't count on it. I mean, if you were advising Caleb Wilson, would you advise him to come back to college? No, because it won't be
from like a common sense kind of perspective. No, I don't think it makes when you're a lottery pick literally right in front of you. I don't know why you would, but like you said, I think Caleb Wilson's also a different bird. I think Caleb Wilson's not like a lot of these other lottery picks. I think he really loves Chapel Hill, really loves the program, really cares and gets. We've talked about this all season, AJ. Caleb Wilson gets what North Carolina is. I mean, more than any freshman I've seen in a long time. You know what I mean? He
doesn't strike me as an absolute NBA lock, as in a hurry to get there. I've covered a lot of kids that come in as freshmen and they're in a hurry to get to the NBA. Mm-hmm. College is a stepping stone. Caleb has immersed himself in all things, not just Carolina. He was at the baseball game yesterday. Jarvis Hicks is covering the baseball game yesterday and texted me, he said, Caleb Wilson's in the stands.
That's hilarious.
He's different. And it's not an issue of how can Carolina come up with enough money to bring him back. It won't be a money decision. It will be a life experience decision if he were to choose to do that. But I don't want to spend too much time on it because I just think it's incredibly unrealistic that it happens, but I wouldn't say it's 100% unrealistic only because Caleb Wilson is very, very different and very different in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if he did, but I think it makes more sense if he didn't. I think this is an interesting question. This is from Silver Dollar 101 a few minutes ago. Why has Carolina not been able to recruit like Duke has? Is it an HD problem or a money problem? And I'm not just going to throw Duke in there. I think you could throw it into some other programs around the country. And this is something we've talked about behind the scenes before. Probably been on our message boards at some point before in terms of maybe why that is. But AJ, I'll kind of let you answer that question however you feel comfortable. Why? And I don't think they're just talking about out of high school. I think it also has to do with the portal a little bit as well. But what's your opinion on kind of that question and at least what maybe you feel comfortable answering right now? Because again, I don't divulge with so much.
Probably the same thing any objective Carolina fan would say. I mean, you've got to look at reality. Mm-hmm. Duke is pumping them off into the NBA. Freshmen come in. I think one of the biggest differences, and I noticed this when I covered Duke as well. Remember, I covered the ACC for a long time. I used to cover Duke and Carolina like at the same, like just as much. And I would often, especially during the early part of the season, I'd have a noon game at Duke and a 7 p.m. game at Carolina.
Yeah, I
used to go from a press conference at Duke over to a press conference at Carolina. And one of the things that I used to marvel at was how different the programs appeared on the surface, but how similar they were behind the scenes, below the surface. But the one absolute that always amazed me about Duke, especially when Coach K started going full-on freshman, is how he and now Shire are so good at infusing freshmen with confidence. Mm. And that's huge. So a freshman who's confident, a freshman who gets an opportunity is going to blossom and grow more. and become the draft pick that a lot of people project he might be before they go to college. Like Dame Sarr, for example, I don't know where he's going to get drafted this year, but he looks like a very different player now than he did in November. And I was on the court side watching their game against Siena the other day, and I look at him like, wow, this guy's just got so much potential.
He was really good.
There are a lot of things about his game that are not fully refined yet, but he plays with incredible confidence, which allows all that those natural gifts to come out. I don't think that's always been the case at North Carolina. Certainly in the Hubert Davis regime, we see a lot of freshmen that come in. It takes them some time. Caleb was different, but even Caleb coming in, there were no guarantees that he was going to be a 35-minute guy because there were questions about whether Hubert would play him 35 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not dogging Hubert. It's a different approach, but I think Duke's approach, and I think it's the perfect example because that's what the question was. They bring kids in that know they're going to play. They know the expectations are going to be extremely high. They're not going to be treated like freshmen. They're going to be treated like upperclassmen who are on a mission. And that's the biggest difference that I see. So more kids might be interested. Now, the money factor, there's a lot of money there. It's kind of hard to track money right now. I have to be completely honest about that. I think North Carolina, I know I could say this with absolute certainty. People will like this. And you know where I'm going with this, because I told you about this.
That's why I'm kind of chuckling.
If Arkansas does it, why can't North Carolina?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
There's been a hesitance at times about that. I've used the term New Carolina. They were going to throw a crap load of money toward football long before Bill Belichick ever got on the radar. They were going that way anyway. Now, maybe not $10 million for a coach. That changed things with him, but they were still going to pump a ton of money into it. They're prepared to do that with basketball as well. We've been talking about it for a year and a half, 2 years. And obviously, with whatever happens next, that has to be a massive part of the conversation. You cannot get outspent by the guys 8 miles up the road. That's just the bottom line. And I don't think that will be the case moving forward.
Yeah, and so I talked about this earlier this week on a podcast. It might have been a live show, the Three Things live show, but you talk about the NBA. You just look at you look at the amount of players that Duke's got in the NBA right now. I mean, it's almost triple. I mean, I think it was something like Carolina's got 11 players in the league or in the G League right now, and I think 5 or 6 of them, from what I counted, were guys that were on like permanent NBA rosters. Everybody else was just back and forth. You look at, like I said, you look at Duke, they've got 25 plus. And I'd have to go through and see, well, who's on the G League team and who's on a permanent team. But again, it is a exponentially larger number than North Carolina. And we've talked about this before, AJ. Like, one of the reasons I think that Hubert Davis is under much pressure as he is, and kind of the situation of playing out like it did, and fans really got fed up. I think a big chunk of fans got fed up earlier this season. And then with the VCU game, I think that put a lot of other fans that were kind of on the fence over the edge. But one of the big things that I think puts pressure on North Carolina with where it is now, because this is a program that's not been trending in the right direction going back to Roy's last 2 years, so 7 years now pretty much, is the fact that you can look 8 miles down the road and say, well, they're doing pretty good right now. And I know you can always throw the thing at Duke, well, they haven't won a national title since 2015. I get that. But when you look at the NBA production, when you look at the amount of ACC tournament championships that John Shire's won, regular season titles, he's had really good teams. And Carolina has just been kind of floating in this weird kind of place where you're not sure what Carolina really is anymore. And more often than not, you're looking at Carolina and saying, this isn't a program that's really where it should be. And I think everybody watching this stream understands that and gets that and wants Carolina to get back to where it has been. So I think that's the thing we've spent a lot of time talking about too, AJ, is just the NBA factor. Like, Carolina should have so many more players in the NBA than they do. And when the team 8 miles down the road is producing NBA talent like it's nothing, that plays a factor in the discussion here. And it always goes back to the head coach. I mean, it just does, because that's the face of the program. So I wanted to get you kind of on that, because again, we've hit on it before, but I just find it interesting and concerning in a lot of ways that Carolina is not producing NBA talent like they used to, not nearly like they used to. And that's not where Carolina should be. And that goes back to what we're talking about here.
Well, that's a fact. I'm gonna go on the other side of the discussion just for a moment, because I think that people need to be reminded of this as well. First of all, 2 years ago, Carolina swept Duke. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And so it's the national people and just the general above average college basketball fan probably thinks that, Tribbles win. The reason they stormed the court, because they hadn't beaten them in years, which is just not true.
I did see that narrative.
The other thing is, for all of the NBA players that Duke has produced, Duke has played in 2 national championship games since 2001.
Yes.
Carolina's played in 5. They lost
yeah.
one at the buzzer. The other one, they had a 15-point lead and a half. They very well could have 5 national championships during the same period that Duke has played in 2 national championship games. So the NBA player, the IT school, the TV team, the TV program, all that stuff. Yeah, Duke's got a lot of that, but the objective is to hang banners. Now, Carolina hasn't hung a lot of banners of late, but during that full scope of time, Carolina's still done pretty well. Ever since Duke sold out to go, and I say sold out, but they did at the time, we're just going to go one and done. Remember, Calipari sold out, the Duke started doing it. They played one title game. Mm-hmm. They went from 2010 to 22, making one Final Four. So Carolina, with older guys that maybe don't hang in the league as long, 2017 roster, comparable to 93 with NBA stuff, right? But they cut down the nets. That's ultimately the objective. So there are 2 ways to look at it. But I agree with you. Moving forward, the balance is going to be having a great young player and some older guys around them, and what you can get from the portal. So, look, Carolina used to have a segment during the official timeout where they would run a video montage of all the Tar Heels in the NBA, and they'd show like a highlight of them in the NBA. They stopped doing that 2 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The reason they stopped, because the thing would last like 19 seconds.
You pointed that out.
I'm not trying to make a joke, but
I hadn't noticed that until you pointed it out.
It used to last like a minute and a half.
Oh, I remember it. It was a staple of going to games. Like you would always see some type of video like that. I mean, going back 20 years, you know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of an indictment of what we're talking about, where the program's at right now. And you are right. Giving the other side of the argument is completely right. And I've argued with many Duke fans about that. But I think on the surface, too, I just feel like the University of North Carolina should be producing NBA talent because they are a blue blood program and want to be one of the best programs in college basketball. If you are de facto one of those, I feel like it should be an automatic thing that you're also churning out a lot more NBA talent than Carolina has been over the last few years. So, yeah, it's just an interesting conversation that, we'll see if that changes moving forward. I think it needs to ultimately, for sure. I was trying to see if there's any more questions. I had another question here that I just lost because this live chat is moving so fast. Oh yeah, someone asked about Jim Tanner, AJ. Like, does his future hinge on anything with Hubert? My understanding would be no. I mean, he's only been here 1 year as well. What would you say to that? Because I have seen that asked a couple times in the live chat.
Yeah, 1.5 years, I guess. I can't answer that for sure. I've been told that they are separate. They're not joined at the hip. I mean, I don't think Hubert was anxious to bring in a GM. I don't think that's news to anybody. In October of 24, during the ACC tip-off, excuse me, Hubert said that we are not a transactional program. And then they hired GM 2 months later. So they are a transactional program. If you're not a transactional program, then you're going to play in the MEAC or something like that. So they have to be. And I think it took Hubert a while to sort of warm up to that. But I've had conversations with Tanner, and he has nothing but incredibly positive things to say about Hubert. He is a Hubert promoter. He there's nothing negative at all. I believe, based on what I have seen, and I'm not as close to it as others are that are in that room, but I don't see any issue with their relationship. Number one. Number two, I don't think that they're joined at the hip here. But if a new coach does come in, he may want to have his own GM. He may want to have, like when Tanner came in, they had a different guy who was ahead of the collective before. I think they kind of moved that person out because Tanner kind of wanted to have his own guys there, that kind of thing. So that happens in all businesses. Oh, sure. So I cannot answer the question if he would be around beyond whenever. I just can't answer that question right now. I do think he's done a pretty good job. I do think they did a nice job accumulating talent. I just think in the end, the talent didn't mesh as well as people thought. And to be perfectly honest with you, we have to be blunt. I don't think the schemes fully complemented the talent. And that's one of the reasons why we're here having this conversation.
That's an interesting topic to hit on because guys, get your questions in. I haven't mentioned that in a while. If there's any other questions, we're not going to talk about future coaching candidates, all that stuff. We're not going to hit on that. It's not an appropriate time to do so. But if there's any other questions you guys want to hit on, get them in the comments right now. But that's one of the topics I've seen thrown around. So we'll talk about this for a second. Roster construction with this year's team. What have you made of the roster construction? Because I've said going back a couple months now that I felt like Carolina had too many passengers. And I think ultimately it all comes back to the head coach, because a coach's number one job, and I've said this before, I've said two things. Not everything is the coach's fault, but it is ultimately his responsibility. But a coach's number one job is to get the best out of the players at his disposal. That is a coach's number one job, because if you don't get the best out of the players you have, your team is not going to be the best version that it can be. So roster construction is something I've seen tossed around for years now, especially in this NIL portal era. I think it's been a hot topic of conversation this year, and I think it's a very interesting conversation. I think you could say, well, they absolutely hit on Caleb. We talked all offseason that Henry Vasar is the best transfer that Carolina got in the portal. We were saying that months before the season started, AJ. Lo and behold, he was. And I think everybody else that came in, there was some question marks about. We heard a lot of good things about Luka. Didn't exactly pan out with him. Kion brought in to be your starting point guard, $1.8 million. He, towards the end of the season, essentially kind of a non-factor for North Carolina. You've got a true freshman who I like running the show. So what is your take on the roster construction in this season? And I just think it's such a difficult question to answer too, because again, I think a lot of it comes back to, are you able to get the best out of their players? And are you asking the players that you brought in, are you putting them in positions that they are comfortable and they excel in? And based on a lot of things we've talked about this year, I don't know if that was the case in a lot of different scenarios.
The last time anybody saw Kion Evans play basketball last season were those two NCAA tournament games. And I actually talked to Kion the other day, Wednesday, the day before their first round game. And he was the only player on the roster to that point who had scored 20 points in an NCAA tournament game. And he did it against Memphis. And then they lost at the buzzer and almost went to the Sweet 16. He was going to be a starting point guard in the Sweet 16 on a good team. Good enough team that the coach went and got the Minnesota job. So I think a lot of people thought they were getting that. I thought so too. And that's not ultimately what happened. I think Kion's a much better player than people have seen. I just think that there's a Cade Tyson element, the way things kind of happen, where he just lost a ton of confidence. And Cade I've said before, you go back to Lawrence, Kansas last year, game 2. Cade Tyson goes in the game. He played 61 seconds. He shot an air ball, a turnover, and a foul. Hubert pulled him out, and that was the end of Cade Tyson.
That was it. Yeah, that was it.
That was it. Kion had stretch there where it just wasn't working, and Hubert was slow to replace him with Derek in the starting lineup, in part because, and we talked about this at the time, coaches have to make sure that the room knows what's best. In the room, they know ball, but sometimes making a change like that, which is like making a change at quarterback, it's a lot harder at point guard than other positions. You kind of got to have everybody on board with it when it happens. And they were out in California after Stanford. It was time to do it. And Derek's first start was Cal, and he started the rest of the way. And he ended up having the better year, obviously. So yeah. the other guys, you have to have the right scheme. You have to have the right scheme. You have to adapt. You have to put guys in positions to succeed. You have to infuse them with confidence. The guys that play 20 minutes one game and 4 the next and look over their shoulders, that is not conducive to building a championship caliber type team. It's just not. Now, not everything's going to be cookie cutter every game. And part of Hubert doing that, and we did applaud him, he showed more trust in players all the way until the very end. And against VCU, he didn't trust his bench. And it's one of many black marks against his coaching performance that night. But up to that point, he had done a nice job trusting guys, rolling with them at times, feeling things out. I thought he felt games better than he had previously. But we never saw Jonathan Powell really pop the way we thought he could.
No.
Kion had a couple of good games as the backup point guard, and we're like, hey, maybe this is happening now. And then he reverts a little bit. Jaren would have a couple of Jaren Beasley games, and Jaren obviously wasn't on the bench, but then he would kind of revert a little bit. There was a lot of inconsistency with guys. Sometimes it's on the players. It's not all the coach. Sometimes it's the players. In the end, I think it was a good roster that they could have won a lot more games with. I think if healthy all year long, could have had a 3 seed maybe, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. But things happen, and as Hubert always says, you have to how you react and respond to adversity reveals who you are. And Hubert, in the end, with Caleb going down, I thought the last 3 games exposed a lot. And that's why we're having these conversations now.
Yeah, and just sitting on Kai, I was going to bring this up when you were talking about, but Kyan is a guy that you mentioned this year. I remember you mentioned this multiple times, that you really never, you say kind of verbatim, like, I think Kyan will probably go somewhere else in a system that fits him more and probably do well. I think he's a guy, a prime example of maybe the system in which he was brought into and asked to run doesn't necessarily fit his skill sets. And also,
we saw that early on.
Yeah, we saw that early on. I mean, that's been something that's been evident for a little bit. I remember his first interview when, like, I'm not trying to pick on him at all. I really want to make that clear. Just a guy that we're talking about right now. I remember his first interview, like, someone asked him, like, describe your game, and he's like, I'm a shooter, and you're kind of like, you're the point guard of North Carolina. Like, that's great, but like, you're here, you got the keys to the castle, my man. Like, I don't know if that's the answer you want to hear. So again, it ended up working out, and I think there's other reasons for that. I think he probably will. Who knows what will happen? But I think there is a good player in there. I just don't think it worked in North Carolina. But one thing also too, AJ, and this goes back to what I talked about with Duke a little bit in the NBA and everything. Like, I look at Carolina's roster, and I'll ask you, I mean, what NBA talent is on Carolina's roster? 2 guys
right now.
This year's roster.
Well, obviously Caleb and Henry. Obviously.
And Caleb's a lottery pick, and I think Henry's stock has risen here, and this staff deserves credit for that because he came in.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with Henry when he works out for teams.
Yes.
And
but he's the guy that's probably late
since that's up.
Yeah.
Since that's come up and now the season's over, I can say this, that it's not an absolute lock that he's going to the NBA. And what we've been told, well, I don't want to go too much into it because I don't think it's fair to him, but it's not a lock that he's going to the NBA. He wants to be a first-round pick. He's getting married, so there's some life decisions to make there, and also some development decisions. He's 22, so he comes back. He's 23, draft age next year, when he's going up against a lot of 19 and 20-year-olds. So that might be something as well. Teams maybe at the bottom of the first round might see a plug-and-play 15-minute guy that gives them exactly what they need. He might fit in that. But he does need to get better. He needs to become more physical. He needs to get stronger. He needs to play through contact better. And I thought as the game went on Thursday night, he started getting pushed out a little bit more. So those are some, but he was exhausted. He should have had a break. Hubert should have subbed for him, and maybe that wouldn't have happened. But those are the 2 NBA guys. There are times when people thought that maybe Seth could play his way into the league. And there's some things that Seth does that teams would like, but I can't sit here and say, yes, he's an NBA player, because we've seen some other Carolina players come along that were in the Seth mode that never made it. And then we've seen some that did play some. A lot of people were surprised that Theo Pinson lasted and stuck. A lot of people were surprised Danny Green did back in the day. Oh, God, he was on one of those deals where he basically didn't do anything with the Cavaliers for a while, and he was bouncing around, and all of a sudden he found his form.
He
hung around enough
and came back.
He hung around enough to find his form. I mean, Seth needs to be able to have a better handle and shoot. If he could have a better handle and shoot better, there's a lot of teams that wouldn't mind something like that in their organization in some capacity, like certainly in the G League. So, and that gives you opportunity. Look at Cormac.
Yeah.
Cormac's up now, and then somebody put in the thread there a little earlier that they believe Cormac scored the other day.
He did,
probably. Yeah. I think he may have. I don't remember.
I think he hit his
didn't
first.
Really look it up, but I heard they did.
He scored his first NBA points, and it came on like his first shot. I think he'd been in the game for like 10 seconds, so it was cool to see that. I remember seeing a video on Instagram or something about it. Yeah,
Cormac's trigger is ready at all times. But anybody else, I don't see it right now. No.
And I think that just, to me, that shouldn't be the case, and it's been the case like that for a few years now. And again, I think that just talks about kind of the state of where the program's at in a lot of ways. This is a question I think we can answer, AJ. We said we're not going to answer questions about who the next guy may be, but I've seen this question asked a few times, and I think it's something we can't hit on. Multiple people have asked, is it time to go outside the family? If this thing ends up playing out, Hubert ends up going, whatever, is it time to go outside the family? My answer to that, because I've been asked that a few times over the last couple of days, is you better hope so. And the reason for that is if you keep it there, there ain't a candidate out there that really moves the needle. There's not a Roy Williams out there. I just think this is a crossroads point that you've got to, if and when that time comes. You just absolutely have to. And I think the program almost needs that kind of jolt. And you've mentioned this before earlier this week on a podcast, AJ. Whoever, let's say someone from outside the family comes in. You can come from outside a family and become part of the family. You know what I mean? Like, so what is your take on that? Because like I've said, I just think, yes, you better hope that is the case, because I don't know who you would give it to inside.
If Brady Manick's face is showed on the video board and he's at a game at the Dean Dome, he's going to get a roar because he's part of the family.
He
and he played 4 years.
Man.
He's the 14th all-time leading scorer at Oklahoma, and he's in the Carolina family. That's all you need.
One of the
Drop the
loudest
mic and move on.
ovations. One of the loudest ovations.
Henry, the same thing. Henry, the same thing. A lot of these guys go to Carolina when they grow up fans of other schools, and they become a part of the family. That's what family is. We live at a time where there's so many blended families anyway. Family is about more than just bloodlines. There's a lot of other things that define family. And when you're an athletics team and guys are coming from different places anyway, family is more loosely defined. And Roy grew up Carolina, went to school there, coached under Dean, but he also beat Dean in the Final Four in 1991.
Yeah.
All right. And he wanted to beat Dean's butt that day. It tore him to pieces when he did. And then Dean got ejected in the last minute of the game. But he still did. So did that mean he was no longer in the family? Of course not. He came back. I think the family is an amazing thing. I think the history and the connections and the whole royalty factor of North Carolina basketball over time is an awesome thing. And it has been an absolute pleasure and privilege and honor to cover it. And it's wild whenever I go on the road, because I cover every game. When other media will ask about it, they'll talk about it. And it's a pretty cool thing. And once you go outside, it's over. And you're just like everybody else, kind of. But that's kind of okay. I think it's time for North Carolina to not be stuck in some of the ways it has been stuck in. That's why I use the term New Carolina. There's a lot of Steve Newmark, people will love him. Steve Newmark is different. And I think, Chancellor Roberts is different. North Carolina needed this. North Carolina needed to shake the tree in all areas, even with the stuff going on in football. The fact that the next coach that they go look for in football knows that they could spend a ton of money. Just want to spend it wisely, maybe, but should spend a ton of money. So those messages have been sent on that in that sport. They've been sent in some other sports. And the fact that they're looking for an arena, they want to have a Taj Mahal of basketball. A guy can come in from outside and be the head coach when they open those doors, and he's the guy. And he's the one out there raising money and getting people to the donors to pony up for that arena for this many luxury suites or whatever they would ask someone to do. That's family. Mm-hmm. That's family. Anybody, think about jobs you've had. You become really attached to your company that you work for. You become a part of that.
100%.
If you change high schools after 2 years, you go to a new high school, that becomes a part of who you are. Mm-hmm. You could have extended family. Mm-hmm. So I think it will be a very healthy thing for North Carolina, to be perfectly honest with you.
And I think it's something too that I think a majority of the Carolina fan base is completely fine about, and I think excited about in some ways. I mean, just with all the rumors, because obviously when things like this happen in coaching positions come into question, like one of the favorite things that people love to do, especially fans, is like, whoa, who's the next guy going to be before anything even happens? And I think overall, like the vast majority of people know, because we've said this before, AJ, Carolina fans ain't stupid, man. Like Carolina fans know ball. Carolina fans know what it takes, know what the standard is here, know what a good basketball team and basketball program looks like. And I think a vast majority of people just say, I don't care who you hire, man. As long as the guy comes in and wins basketball games and gets us back to where we are. I won't say this. There are probably a couple people they would not want to hire. You guys know what I'm talking about. But I think overall, like whoever, I don't think it really matters anymore. Because again, there is no glaring candidate out there. Back when Matt Doherty ran out of town, AJ, there was Roy Williams sitting over the wings. I could have made that hire. You know what I mean? But we're sitting in a situation now where there isn't some clear guy out there that you can just go say, hey, that's the guy, and he went to Carolina. That just doesn't exist right now.
That was a perfect storm.
Oh, my God, yeah.
He couldn't say no to Dean a second time, but he also had issues with the AD at Kansas. Mm-hmm. The AD at Kansas for a long time was Brad Frederick's dad, and he and Roy were very close. So then there was an AD change, and Roy had some issues there too. So it made it a little bit easier for him to come back to North Carolina because he had his own thing there, and he was going to win titles there. He would be legendary there. I think Roy winning 3 at North Carolina, I believe North Carolina is the best job in college basketball. And I think Roy, what he did at Kansas, that we did at North Carolina, you kind of see the results there. It wasn't so much that he just became a better coach. He was a great coach already. I just think there's more there. And I think it could be that again with the right person at the helm. There were a couple of comments in there real quickly too about, gosh, what was it?
Yeah, feel free, because I'm reading through them right now, trying to see if there's any other
questions. I'm reading
again,
too. There was something I wanted to hit on.
We're going to go another like
to hit on, but I
15
can't
minutes in
find
here.
it now.
We'll cap it about an hour and we'll get out of here because AJ needs to go to the store and I need to do other things
too. Plus I have a bunch of other stuff that I'll be up to like 3 working. So that's just the way it is this time of year. Someone said something about they screwed up the football hire. Don't trust them with basketball or something like that. It's not going to be handled that way. I can assure you that, because the tentacles that were allowed, that were allowed to interfere with the football situation are banned essentially right now. So
I mentioned that to you too, where I think I said it on a podcast where I was a little bit like, because of how the whole Belichick thing played out, and even going back to other hires, Mac Brown, I think, bringing him back, like, let's just go get the winningest coach we've ever had. Like, it's not really due diligence. I think there is, and I think that is a popular narrative out there where I think some fans are a little bit concerned, and I completely understand where they're coming from, that like there isn't a lot of proof in the pudding to suggest that whoever the heck is making this decision is going to get it right. And I think one of the other reasons is, we talked about this off camera in another podcast that'll, eventually probably see the light of day, where you have to go, like, Carolina hasn't really had to go out and make a real hire in basketball since 1952. I mean, like, you look at the connections, I don't need to go through it, but Frank McGuire, who took over for him? It was Dean Smith. Dean basically got the job, the minute Frank McGuire was forced to resign because of the violations that he had. Dean's there forever. Who's his successor? It's handpicked Bill Guthridge, handpicked by Dean Smith. Who's his successor? Matt Doherty. Matt Doherty was a guy that had one okay season at Notre Dame, and then he gets the North Carolina job. But why did he get the North Carolina job? Because he went to Carolina. Who came after that? Roy Williams, the most obvious hire in the history of the sport, arguably, who was a Carolina guy, grew up a Carolina fan, went to Carolina, was an assistant coach under Dean. And then who gets the job after that? A guy that was handpicked by Roy Williams and Hubert Davis, who was an assistant on his bench and played at Carolina. So this is almost like an unprecedented time moving forward, kind of, where I can understand where some people are a little bit concerned and a little bit worried about, like, will this, if and when the time comes, will this next guy be the guy that people want and they ultimately a good hire? And I don't know. You can't really answer that question because, well, there's really no proof in the pudding to know either way. You know what I mean? Because it's just something that hasn't happened in 75 years. It's irrelevant.
Let me see if I can scroll back up here and get one. I'm not able to scroll back up here. It's probably my laptop. Black Reacher hating on Belichick. Let's go Chapelville. We're not doing that. I'm just sort of matching like a narrative. That's all. I'm just matching a narrative for discussion point. Not hitting on. We got Bill on. Talk to Bill on Tuesday. Looking forward to seeing what he says. How much he says.
Football, man. It's creeping up, man. It is absolutely, it is here at this point, especially spring ball. Someone asked, recruiting wise, what would happen to the recruiting class if Hubert was to go? And I think that one's up. Kind of a difficult question to answer, I think, a little bit, isn't it? Because we're not even there yet. You know what I mean? Like,
it just depends on who would come in. They'd have conversations and then we'll see how it goes. I mean, I have no way of knowing.
Because then you're dealing with a situation where a new guy is coming in with his own ideas and his own players and his own recruiting history. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just hard to, that's a very difficult question. I had to bring it up because it's been asked by multiple people, but that's just a very difficult question to answer, especially where we're at right now.
Not many dudes take a job where you've got Maximo Adams and Dylan Mingo in the books coming essentially either. That's pretty good way to get things kicked off. So, although I know people think about Mingo, I'm not going to go in there. Not going to go there, but anyway, and the Maximo injury is not a big deal either. It's not.
David
not going to be out for very long.
Boards. Yeah, David reported that a couple of days ago. Had some really interesting insight in what's going on.
Someone asked if we think they'll swing for the fences when the time comes. I think that they will. They're not going to reach out to Jeff Capel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're not lying about that.
They're not going to reach out to Steve Forbes.
No.
Yeah, this is North Carolina. The stuff like this happens because you know who you are and you know who you need to be. You know you've been. You know who you need to be. So you've got to try to jack one out of the deepest part of Yankee Stadium.
You're a big basketball sports history guy, AJ. And I agree with you on this, but I want to ask you about it. You said a few minutes ago you think Carolina is the best job in college basketball. Why do you say that? Because I think 99% of people agree with you. Listen to this, by the way. So.
Well, Carolina fans do. A lot of others don't. They would say Duke is because Duke is held in higher esteem, but that doesn't mean the job's better. Carolina has played in national championships in every full decade of the NCAA tournament. And they've done so under 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different coaches. They've been to the Final Four with 6 different coaches. It is sustainable. It will never become Indiana unless the negligence is so gross that I can't even foresee it being that way. It could have become UCLA in a stretch. I think they've kind of been a little bit like that. Yeah. But they have incredible advantages. It's amazing how many people on the road that go out just to see the uniform. When I was at Kansas last year, our seats, the media seats, we had fans around us. And when I got up after the game to leave to go down to the press conference stuff, a Kansas fan stopped me. I guess he saw my lanyard and saw I was North Carolina media. And he said, "This is so incredible. I'm so glad." He said, "You guys," thinking they think that we are part of the team, right?
Yeah, you get that a lot.
"I'm so glad you guys came here," because he said it was worth the price of admission just to see that uniform at the center jump. They are iconic. When you turn on the TV, as much as Dayton tries to wear light blue, as much as Ole Miss tries to wear light blue, and so on, it's North Carolina. There is something about North Carolina that is incredibly unique. It has the history, it has all the brand, it has all that laundry up there. You can never take away MJ. A lot of things you can't take away from it that a lot of other places simply don't have and won't have, unless it's not sustained here, of course. So the money's there, the appetite's there. If one thing that we've learned here in recent years is that this fan base has a Kentucky side to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's good. I think there was a period where Carolina fans, some may have taken it for granted. But that doesn't happen now. Sometimes to really become passionate more than you ever showed before was when you start to lose something and then you want to get it back. So yeah. I like that. I think moving forward, going into a new building, the money that's coming, the options the university will have if and when the time comes that options can be exercised about movement, it is going to be extremely well situated in basketball, provided they have the right person running the program.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the best job for a lot of those reasons. It has incredible history. History goes back. People, it started with Dean Smith. Just like people say Duke started with Coach K. Duke got a pretty good coach there in the 60s. And Duke was in a national title game in 78. But
it wasn't just him.
Too. I know people don't want to hear that, but Carolina's, the tentacles go way much further back in the time. And really, you go back and look in the 20s, they had great teams. 30s, they had great teams. It's just something that's always mattered. With the 57, when they won the national championship and beat Wilt Chamberlain in Kansas in triple overtime, when the plane came back and arrived here in North Carolina, 10,000 people met them at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
That's 1957, kids.
Mm-hmm.
This is in the blood. It's in the culture. I call it the Church of Carolina basketball because it is. And there aren't many places that have that. And that have had the sustained success over time that North Carolina has.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, it's just, so much history with this program. I always tell people, man, just go to the Smith Center and look up. It'll make sense real quick, man. Just go to the Smith Center and look up for a few minutes and you'll be like, oh yeah, I get it now. Like, it's just that's all you really have to do to understand what the history of this is. Guys, we're gonna go about 5-6 more minutes, cap it an hour. If there's any more questions people want to get in, go ahead and get them in right now. I know I've probably missed a few. I'm trying to scroll back and see if I've seen any. I apologize if I missed your question, especially if you put it in here a few times. Brandon McClain, kind of interesting question. I mean, he said, do you think UNC, backhandled other coaches during the season, the event that this outcome became a reality? I've always maintained that. No, I don't think they have. But I brought it up because I want to ask you about this. I'm a firm believer that every program, every sports team, especially at the highest level, especially a blue belt like North Carolina, when you don't win a national championship every year, your season's a failure to the fans. It just is. It's just the standard here. That you should have a list of people, no matter what. Even if the coach in front of you is doing an absolutely fantastic job, it is your responsibility as the CEO, essentially the running administrator of a massive, we'll just talk about it in business perspective, a massive company that means so much to so many people. Your due diligence should be done at all times. It shouldn't be like, man, this isn't working out. What are we going to do now? Let's go scramble and try to figure. I feel like it is the responsibility of everyone involved that makes the decisions to always have contingency plans in place. Is that something you agree with, AJ? And or do you think it's something where it's just things happen and, we'll react when it happens? Because I just feel like that's not a great way to go about it in any type of business, much less a sports business like this.
Yeah, and AD having 5 names on a list, so to speak, is 100% real. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know. I can't speak for Bubba or for Newmark on this. I have no way of knowing, and it would be totally unfair and unwise of me to speculate any way, shape, or form. But understanding how these processes go, I don't think, first of all, I don't think there's been any back channeling prior to Thursday night, number one. Number two, you're always aware, you always have to be prepared. Mm-hmm. Any good organization that's successful and sustains itself and adapts has always got its antennas up, right?
You have to.
So I can say that, but I don't believe as of Thursday night there'd been any back channeling going on. I don't believe that, but I also don't know for a fact. But I am not going to put that on anybody unless I know for a fact, and I don't. So I can't really say much more about it.
It's a tough one to know for a fact too, because it's just like you could. Back channeling can mean a lot of different things too, but I just think it's a responsibility of an organization like this. You should always have contingency plans in place, because you just never know. Even if you're having the most success you've ever had, things in life happen, as people know. It's not just always about wins and losses. A couple more questions coming in, guys. We'll give it about 5 more minutes and we'll wrap this thing up. AJ, one timeline question. I mean, let's say the decision happens whenever it happens, if it happens, kind of thing. Do you think it's something that would be, in terms of bringing someone new in, and this might be too early to even know this, do you think it would be handled pretty quickly? Or is it just because it seems like any organization would want to handle it quickly? You know what I mean?
I have to sidebar for a second. Sean Crowley. That's right. Mm-hmm. Got a full 62 coming up. Orioles baseball.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. The good thing about Carolina getting a limit, the good thing about my personal coverage of the NCAA tournament is I do get to watch opening day.
Yeah,
I can't answer the question because there are a lot of parameters at play. What if they go? What if they want someone who's still coaching?
Yep.
Let's just let it play out. I don't want to speculate because it's unfair to speculate because I don't know how certain timelines are going to be, and there's other guys still playing. It's not like the season ended across the board yesterday. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And 100%. Whoever is still coaching, they're not going to announce, "Hey, we're going to finish the tournament, and then I'm going somewhere else." Remember, the old guys in here will remember Steve Fisher, when he took over in '89 at Michigan, because Michigan's coach at the time had already agreed to become the Arizona State coach, kind of behind the scenes, and it got out. And the Michigan administration found out, and they canned his butt the night. I think the tournament bids went out. So Steve Fisher, who was his associate head coach, took over, and they won a national title in '89. Mm-hmm. Ramil Robinson beat Seton Hall, and Fisher had Fab Five, and Fisher ended up at San Diego State. So conversations could happen, but nothing's going to publicly happen.
No. AJ, I got a little breaking news for you, and it's really not anything related to Carolina. Kansas 65, St. John 67. And I hate myself for reading out. I hate myself for reading out the losing score first, because that's one of my biggest pet peeves when people do that. But I had to do it to build a little bit of suspense in there, so I didn't just give away the winner. St. John's.
Yeah, I saw that earlier. Virginia's down 2 right now with 2.5 minutes. Boy, the ACC's laying a freaking egg, huh?
We'll wrap it up with this because we're not getting many more questions. We're going in for about 2 more minutes. Quick summary, AJ. What have you made of the NCAA tournament so far? Because it's another tournament again where there have not been a ton.
It's obvious. It's obvious.
Yeah,
because the mid majors and the lower majors, they're really good players are leaving to the power conferences. They're getting paid. So they're not staying there. Well, I'm going to go somewhere where I can play, and I'm going to stay here because I know I'm going to play. And you can get to the league from lots of different places. They're going where they can get paid now because they don't know if the league will ever be there. So there is not as much high-end, carry a team for a stretch guys on those lower seeds now. They're just not as good as they used to be. That's why.
Yeah, it's a shame, too. It's been a good tournament in a lot of ways.
I think what will change it is, and I think there's a really good chance this spring that the NCAA will limit how frequently you can transfer. They could call it the Van Allen Lubin rule.
Somebody actually
Right.
asked earlier
So, and
if
I'm making a
you
joke,
thought there
but
would be any changes in there. So I'm glad you brought that up because that was a question I almost got to.
I could see it being, it used to be where, if you transferred and you hadn't graduated, you had to sit out a year. That won't be the case now. But if you transferred if you transfer before you've graduated, you had to sit out a year. But if you left as a grad transfer, you could play right away. I think what we'll see now is you can leave one time, play right away within your first 4 years. But if you have a fifth year because of a red shirt or whatever the case may be, you can leave and play right away at a third school. But I also think there's a really good chance that they're going to pass 5 years of eligibility and eliminate red shirt altogether.
You still think that's going to happen, probably?
Yeah, I do. Mac used to talk about it a lot, and it makes a lot of sense. You get a lot of injuries now, and I could play some guys because you're trying to hold off on the red shirt. Mm-hmm. You're trying to build a program. I think you got to play them. Last year there were a couple of kids at Carolina that only played a handful of games. It could have played more, but they realized in the middle of the season, hey, wait a second, this is a longer build than we thought. So we want to preserve some of these guys. So I think 5 years, no red shirts, unless there's a huge medical issue, and you cannot transfer more than once in the first 4 years, and only in the fifth year if you've graduated.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's coming.
I could see it. I think,
and I think that because guys will have to stay at schools more, and now maybe more high-end kids go to more of the big schools right out of high school, and they could get lost there. So you want to play. So it's kind of a delicate balance there. But once that happens, I think you'll find out that the MAC, the Metro Atlantic, the Sun Belt, all those kinds of conferences, their high-end teams are going to be a little bit better.
Yeah. It just comes back to the money, man. I mean, it's just this NIL thing just completely changed stuff. It's just these lower programs you can't afford it like these big time programs can. These Power 4 programs. It's changed it so much. It's a shame for the tournament. It's still been a good tournament. I mean, there's still some upsets brewing. I mean, Tennessee beating Virginia would technically be an upset. St. John's over Kansas, technically an upset. But we're not seeing those big kind of upsets that we've seen.
Like the High Point thing, I thought High Point would have been massive if they would have won. But also High Point's a school with a ton of cash. Man, kudos to High Point for flexing their cash muscles the last few days.
Have you ever been to that campus, AJ?
Yeah, well, not really, but I know I'm very familiar.
It's been about 10 years since I've been there, and I know they got a ton of money. But when I'm telling you, that campus is just like every piece of anything on that campus is just brick. It's just made of brick.
Everything into basketball.
Nice campus.
Pour everything into basketball.
Nice arena over there a few years ago too. Yeah.
John Gwaltney, who's on our staff, goes to a lot of games there and just raves about it. So I've actually not been in their arena. I've not been in their arena. I should go check it out someday if I can pull on some doors and go in.
Home and home series, if you're listening, Carolina, get a little home and home series at High Point. I think that'd be pretty cool. Go down the road for a little bit. I think that'd be pretty interesting.
But I think if you're a school like that, just invest in basketball.
100%. I think it's
everything
smart.
into there.
Yeah, because football's not a thing over there. So, all right, man. I think we can wrap this thing up. Questions have dried up. It's been about an hour, which is our plan anyway.
Do you hear the foot tapping?
Yeah, I do a little bit.
Wife with hands on hips, foot tapping, like, come on, guy.
Come on, dude. We gotta
go. Away.
We gotta go. Yeah, no, I hear it, man. I can't.
You got to question her sanity. You got to question her sanity.
You do, man.
You got to really question her sanity.
She's an angel. She's a rock star. And a lot of adjectives I could throw out there to describe Kim. She's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, she's probably impatient right now.
Crazy to stay married to me.
And the patience is dwindling, man. Like, let's go. We got some shopping to do. All right, man. Wrap this up. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Big thank you to everybody that hopped in here. Big thank you to everybody that got questions in. I know there's some we missed. I apologize we couldn't get to them. But as we mentioned earlier, there were some topics it's not appropriate time to tackle right now. So we'll be doing more of these throughout the offseason. Obviously, more podcasts coming out. And yeah, make sure you guys keep it locked to TarGirl247.com. Links in the description. Come join the biggest community of Carolina fans on our website. Links in the description below, as I've mentioned for the 6,000th time in this show. All right, guys. We appreciate it. We'll see everybody next time. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.